Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights 1992. Yeah, Ralph Fiennes, Juliette, Binoche. I'm probably butchering that, but this one was a very interesting adaptation. I had some issues with this DVD though. I tried to watch it in my Xbox Series X, and for some reason it was juking like a motherfucker. I was fine on the menu, and then when I tried to get in the movie, it was just like, bleh. But there was another DVD player, or another Blu-ray player that we had, and it worked out well there, and holy fucking shit. Now, since I've watched 3 of these so far, it's pretty much the 1939 one and this one are pretty close. I like this one. I would pretty much say I like this one more because it goes into the complete aspect of what goes on with Heathcliff and the kind of second generation that goes on. The 2026 one is just like, you'd have to dig past hell to get to that. I was like, nope, go away, go away. So, but this is darker as shit, man. It also has some interesting kind of choices. Still going with a kind of frame narrative of how the story is told, and more kind of religious stuff and symbolism going on with it. Religion takes a big kind of bit into it, but mainly because of like dealing with the afterlife and all that kind of stuff and a lot of people dying. So, we actually start off with Emily Bronte narrating that she like found this kind of like crazy rundown house and trying to imagine what was going on there before setting upon how we kind of know the story of Wuthering Heights. We see Kathy, we see her brother Hindley. We don't have any kind of weird changes like the other one where we get a pretty good idea of what's going on. If you've seen the 1939 one, you'll be very familiar with this one. This one is like 106 minutes and works out very well. It understands what it is attempting to do and fucking commits to it. So since this tells the complete story, I would go more on this one being the higher kind of one in an objective kind of ranking, but more of a subjective one. It's really kind of hard to kind of get through because, like, it's hard because the character of Heathcliff is such an asshole. But that does not mean he's a bad guy. But he is a good character because of understanding what he's doing and what's going on within this story. So we see that the father has brought Heathcliff, presenting him to Kathy as pretty much brother/playmate. Hindley, of course, being the asshole and fucking with him and screwing with him. We see that he becomes friends with Kathy going through. We actually accelerate pretty well through that as we get to them to be older, which we had seen the previous ones kind of lingered a little bit more on that kind of aspect. We then get to Ralph Fiennes, who does a very, like, all the actors for the main cast do a very good job. Juliette has to do kind of double duty on this because we actually get to a point of Kathy's daughter as she plays that character as well. Let me see. Catherine Earnshaw and Catherine Linton, which are like, but wait a minute, she married and became a Linton. Yeah, but it's the daughter there. And Nellie isn't. That was Sinead O'Connor as Emily Bronte? I did not know that. Thank you, Wikipedia. Nellie works out pretty well here. She is more still kind of like the caretaker. Though, there is a weird bit where she's called Nellie, and then certain characters refer to her as Ellen. I don't know why that happens, but it's like, alright, fine, whatever. It's just a weird kind of thing. I didn't hate it or anything like that. I'm just like, what the fuck are you calling her Ellen? But we see them kind of working out together. We see them on the moors. We actually see them go to the Lintons when the Lintons kind of pop up. And looking in, of course, Hindley is the master at the estate at this point, actually gets married and loses his wife in childbirth. So, we get a little bit more of an understanding of how Hindley kind of goes a little bit further into his kind of more self-destructive tendencies. Actually, even ignoring his son, well, not ignoring, we don't really focus much on him and his son Hareton's relationship. But he doesn't really seem that well enthused with taking care of him. As we get to see later on how that kind of has a rumble effect. So we see them kind of going in and looking in. We see that Catherine and Heathcliff are not as kind of adversarial as we had seen in the original, the 1939 adaptation. And what I mean by adversarial is her trying to push him to take her away from there, to give her these kind of finer things before getting attacked by the dogs that they're set upon as they're kind of watching the Lintons doing their weird ass shit in their home. So she gets hurt. She, of course, stays there, gets into with the whole thing with Linton. Edgar also kind of got a little bit into a tiff with Heathcliff, which, of course, foreshadows more of the whole kind of adversarial nature that they have later on. But, of course, she kind of comes back. Of course, Catherine brings up that she's been asked, that Edgar asked to marry her. We don't see Nellie doing this stuff that we had seen in the 2026 one, where she's like, yeah. She doesn't tell Catherine that Heathcliff is there, but she's not doing it out of, like, kind of malicious intent. She's like, oh shit, how the fuck do I handle this situation? Of course, Heathcliff overhears and leaves. So we see that Catherine decides to go and get married to Edgar. And what kind of happens with that? Heathcliff, of course, comes back and is kind of pissed off. Of course, well, not pissed off, but like, why did you do this? You've hurt me. You've hurt yourself. You're empty with everything that's kind of going on here. And she's like, we can't do this. We can't. And, of course, everything's kind of going gnarly. We see that he's, of course, going after Isabella. She's, of course, besotted with him. And her having the child, actually having the child here. And it's like, oh, okay. But we see that Heathcliff, of course, marries Isabella, which then continues the whole kind of spiraling of Catherine, and then she dies. But we see that she has a daughter, and what kind of goes on with that. We also see that Hindley has died here, and Heathcliff then takes command of Hareton, and this is where it starts to really get fucked up. He then starts visiting the ills that Hindley did on him, onto Hareton, not teaching him how to read, treating him like a servant, treating him horribly, and, of course, treating Isabella the same. We see Nellie trying to go and trying to get Isabella released, but, of course, he's turned into more of a kind of sadist, and is, like, fucking with her, but we don't really see him completely fucking with her before we accelerate in time by about like 18 years. Of course, Catherine Linton is back up. We see that Heathcliff also mourns Catherine Earnshaw's death / Linton, going in, breaking in, and taking off stuff from Catherine and hugging her and being very distraught that she's dead. We also see that there's like the religious symbolism of the funerals and everything kind of going on, of him and Catherine earlier being forced by Hindley to be taught by Joseph for like scripture and stuff like that. We also seen, because Emily Bronte was talking about, of course, the new tenants to the Grange, Lockwood, and him being put in the kind of suite. I thought it was Isabella, but it was actually Catherine Linton. I was like, what the fuck? And at first I thought that Hareton was actually Heathcliff's son, but I was like, what the fuck's kind of going on here? As we're learning, and we're getting back to the point in time where everything's going on, where of course he gets visited by Catherine Earnshaw's kind of ghost in that place, and what that kind of does. That, as we get to it, is a different kind of scene than when we got in the 1939 one, which I'm like, okay, that's a kind of interesting kind of play on that. So, we also see, as time is accelerated, he has his own son that he's pretty much utilizing to try and get the Grange and fuck over Edgar and just be a nasty piece of shit motherfucker. He cannot let things go. This is really kind of different than what we had seen. But the thing is, it was skipped over in the 1939 one and wasn't even a factor of consideration in the 2026 one. I'm like, holy fucking shit. And Ralph Fiennes plays it amazingly. I'm like, fuck this guy. He gets into a good turn. He then decides to completely fuck over his tormentor's son. Like, this kid didn't do jack fucking shit to you. Okay? And you decide to be like, I'm gonna fuck you up, man. It's like, Jesus. And then doing the same thing to Catherine Linton by pretty much having her marry his son so he can take everything from the Lintons. It's like, how petty, mean, and cruel that is. And yes, those things have been visited upon him, but goddamn, that's the kind of system and continuing of the generational trauma. We also see that Catherine Linton is getting into it with Hareton, which is like, cousins, man, web feet, man, holy fucking shit, as we see it pretty much echoing what we had seen before with Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff. It's like, will it turn out better this time? As we see that it's nuts. She's able to go say goodbye to her father and everything. As he gets everything, he's like, I got this shit. And then having them there and just kind of fucking with him is like, meh. And him getting like pissed off at them. But of course, we get to the Lockwood. He's freaked out. But we see that the ghost of Catherine Earnshaw beckons him into the place. And he goes in there and he finally meets her in the afterlife. And instead of what we kind of see in the 1939 one, where he runs out into pretty much the snowstorm and then he dies there, and like the doctor dude's able to find his body. Here he dies actually in the room, which I don't know if that's more in line with the book. I mean, at some point I do want to read the book just to see what kind of goes on, because these are three distinct kind of adaptations, though this and the 1939 one have closer kind of workings. I really wish that the 1939 one had expended enough kind of time and energy to go into this second generation, because I'm like, I didn't know that it didn't do that. And this one is better for it because it showcases even more kind of fucked up shit dealing with the class and generational kind of trauma that has been occurring, and what does occur when you kind of repeat these cycles, which completely changes the game plan of what goes on when you're trying to understand what the story is of Wuthering Heights. Is it a romance? Is it about what goes on with class and race, and because him being called a gypsy and everything like that, and what kind of goes on with that? That becomes a big kind of thing of, do we do unto others as we have done unto us? How does the system come into play with that? Because Hindley and his people are put, Hindley and the Lintons are put on top. What happens when you get on top, and do you fight like that? Do you get into that kind of top position like Heathcliff did and just continue to do that kind of shit? What will happen with Hareton and Catherine, as she was actually kind of being like, you don't even know your own name? Like, his Heathcliff's son was making fun of him for that. But she's actually trying to help him kind of teach him to learn to read and everything like that. We see more of that with Catherine Earnshaw trying to teach Heathcliff how to read and everything in the 2026 one, but it's not much. It's like, okay, which are like kind of odd, like what the fuck's kind of going on? That's one I could at least be like, okay, but just to see how he devolves into this complete asshole when he gets on the top, where Earnshaw, the guy that took him in, wasn't that asshole, but Hindley got that way, and because of his jealousy and then everything else that compounded upon him in his life of losing his wife and then just doing stupid ass shit, and then Heathcliff visiting that stuff on someone who was innocent of those things just because he was his son. So we pretty much leave off with like Emily Bronte leaving. We see Catherine and Hareton kind of going off on their own, and we'll see what kind of goes with being like, what would go on with them. It just is a kind of darker tone because of the different kind of subject matter that each one kind of deals with. So that's why I personally would be like, like, it wouldn't be one that I would put in as a personal one, but like when I'm doing objectively of how the film's done with the costuming and everything, how the characters are done or written, it's top tier, man. It knows what it's doing and it executes it very well. It's just like, fuck Heathcliff, especially on that back half. It's like, listen, I understand that you love Catherine, and she loves you, and she said some hurtful things to you, and you decide to go off and then do your own kind of shit to try and come back and get her. But that doesn't mean that when you leave people, they just fucking stay in their kind of like NPC state of like, this is my counter. I shall stay at my counter. No, it's not how this shit works. And he is just an obsessive, possessive motherfucker in this. And Ralph Fiennes really makes that come through in this performance. Now, you also kind of get that in the 2026 one. It's not as intense in the 1939 one. It's more of a kind of like more kind of balanced one. This one is like sweet good God. Fuck man. He really goes complete nutso gutso shit. And it's like, fuck. I don't like this dude. But he is a great character to watch what's kind of going on and doing this. Catherine, she kind of goes in on the same kind of stuff that we see in previous kind of versions or previous adaptations. So she doesn't really get much kind of different on what goes on. We get a little bit of a different kind of twist when we get into Catherine Linton and how that kind of works out of how she attempts to kind of fight against Heathcliff and what he's kind of become. But we don't really spend that much time to kind of flesh it out a lot because we have to deal with like wrapping things up. And she's like, screw you, man. Fuck off. And pissed off that this is the whole kind of thing that she's been forced into by this asshole just to pretty much fuck over Edgar Linton. Again, utilizing the younger generation for things that they were never even really involved in or had any kind of control on. It's like, god damn. So, I would recommend this for people that are into Wuthering Heights. But you have to be like, this gets nutty with Heathcliff. And it's like, motherfucker, you gotta be in the right kind of mindset because if you've been in toxic, nasty-ass relationships, that motherfucker is gonna set off a lot of alarm bells on what goes on for what he does. It's like, god damn. But I overall like the movie and think that it's an enjoyable movie. And if you agree with me, cool. Have fun with it. If you disagree with me, it's quite alright. Dodge this motherfucker. So, those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.